Welcome. I'm Stephen Garvey with NCA. Today we're going to be looking at China and the Great Reset. We have like six documents we're going to be going through. We have a panel here, and we're going to be looking at the comments as well. Uh, so, the purpose today, the fundamental purpose is to raise public awareness on this fairly significant geopolitical issue that has ramifications for people around the world. Um, Before I get into the first document, the Great Reset came out of the World Economic Forum recently during the lockdown. What the Great Reset refers to is UN Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 21, and the goal is to bring about the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is a blending of the physical realm, the digital, and the biological realm, in what's called a transhumanism world. You could argue AI technocracy. This isn't made up, but we're going to go into this, and we're going to look at why you should be concerned, and we're going to address your comments, public comments at the end, and we'll be hearing our input. I'm going to go right into the first document. So this is just going to lay out the China Belt Road Initiative. And then we're going to hear from some of our panel because some of them are quite knowledgeable on this subject. I'm just going to lay out the basic facts first. So this is oftentimes called as the New Silk Road. It's one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects ever conceived. It was launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping. And basically, what it's doing is connecting China, the southeast, to Europe, and basically Northwest Africa through marine and road. Uh, the original Silk Road uh, was westward expansion back in 2000 BCE to 220 CE, which forged the network of Central Asian countries. So this is a pretty big initiative. This article is pretty good because it shows a map of what's coming, but it's a vast network of railways, energy pipelines, highways, streamlined border crossings, both westward and through the mountainous former Soviet republics, and southward to Pakistan, India, and the rest of Southeast Asia. And so here's a basic map of what we're looking at. It makes complete sense what's going on here. There's some concern voiced that it would, and here's all the countries involved in it. Basically, China is the manufacturing hub, and it would connect China to all these countries, especially Europe, and obviously create some efficiency there. But there is concern from the U.S. in particular of the expansion of the U.S. I'm going to refer to Richard now. Richard, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, just taking a look at the map. I mean, that's the basic countries involved, but there's over 100 countries that have signed up for it. Whether or not they'll all follow through or not, there's quite a long list. There's 3 European countries, I think, that also signed up. Portugal, Greece, and Italy have made some tentative agreements. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, infrastructure project the world has ever seen. And the linchpin of it is the Bering Strait tunnel. That's the end game, is to build a tunnel under the Bering Strait and connect Alaska with Russia, which will connect the entire planet with high-speed rail and passenger freight. Even car traffic would be something else. So Yeah.
Okay, Maria, do you have any comments?
I will comment later. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
will
so
have,
I'm going to
yes.
expand on this. There's something called the Digital Silk Road. In my personal opinion, that's a bit more troubling, Richard, but we're going to delve into what that entails. And that's linked more into the Great Reset. I'm just going to comment here for China, Richard, this makes complete economic sense that as probably, the biggest manufacturing hub in the world, they're going to want to connect, right, to all those
Right.
markets. So that makes
Yeah.
complete sense. They're in a very excellent position in contrast to the US, which has the Atlantic and the Pacific basically surrounding it. So we'll have to see what happens here. I know there's some concern about the debt. I don't know whether that's fear mongering um, by the U.S. about this, like the debt that some countries are taking on for this infrastructure. Richard?
Yeah, they're a lot of the Western commentators are calling it a big debt trap because China is financing a lot of these projects, especially in Africa, in communication networks, harbors, ports, roads. All this stuff is being funded, fairly low interest loans, but a loan is a loan. I think there's already a couple of countries that have defaulted, and then China took possession of the
Yes.
port. Yeah, so of course it's also like yes, China will be the biggest beneficiary of the whole plan because instead of all roads leading to Rome, all roads are going to lead to China, to Beijing. And on the other hand, they're also it's their headache. They're putting up all the money, all the risk is theirs. So it kind of works both ways. Um, the comparison with the IMF, this is where it gets really shows the differences between what the West has been offering for since the Second World War with the IMF loans, the World Bank, World Trade Organization, which usually comes with conditions. They want regime change. They want their own puppets in government. They interfere with local governments, and China is not doing this. They're not interfering. There isn't these type of conditions that are going along with the loans, which is, I think, part of the reason why a lot of the third world countries find it a lot more attractive. And they've also had, we've had 300-400 years of Western colonialism, which the third world nation have all experienced. So I think they're more willing to switch allegiances at this point and partner with China. And it's not just a Chinese project; it's a Chinese-Russian project, really, because Russia is running the diplomacy and the military backup to make this all happen.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. We'll have to see how it develops, and obviously China is an emerging power, and that's a threat to the status quo. I'm going to talk about the fourth industrial revolution now. I have a pretty interesting document here that touches on the main issues here, and let me just get into this because this is going to delve deeper into the Great Reset, and this is what I think people need to be looking at. So this document is called China and the Great Reset. It's a good talking point, but I'm going to go right to the gist in this. Right here. So Klaus Schwab, he runs the economic forum, the World Economic Forum, which is tied to the UN, the Rockefeller Foundation, the IMF. Um, it's one of the premier globalist institutions, and the elites, so-called elites, political economic elites, gather there once a year. And I remember when Trudeau was in office, when he first went there, Puppet Trudeau, Central Puppet Trudeau. He was going on about the fourth industrial revolution as well, right? Just parroting what he's been told to say, right? But Klaus Schwab is is connected to China and what they're doing with the AI technocracy. He's been connected with Beijing as well, with Chinese universities for more than 30 years. Schwab is an avowed transhumanist and obviously extremely pro China because of what they're doing there in terms of their technology. It's interesting here to note that Klaus Schwab, his son Oliver Schwab, is married to a Chinese woman and has led the WEF office in Beijing, the World Economic Forum office in Beijing, since 2011. And Schwab, Senior, he says China is on a very good path. A decisive step would be comprehensive acceptance and absorbance of these new technologies, 5G, the drone technology, all the AI components as well, robotics. Schwab also advocates a departure from neoliberalism towards a kind of communist super nanny state, and that's something we agree with. Greenwashed as a bait for upstanding citizens, and that's through the UN IPC climate change agenda. Every citizen would, of course, be unfree and wholly transparent, but well-fed and digital distractions by the state in exchange for data, the oil of the future. This is really interesting here. Klaus Schwab's dream is the establishment of a biometric technocratic surveillance state on the Chinese model. And he authored this in the book, The Great Reset. In it, he describes the lockdown as an unprecedented chance for a complete restructuring of the world economy, all aspects of social cooperation. For the transhumanist Schwab, artificial intelligence represents the next stage in the evolution of consciousness. He sees ordinary human beings with all their passions and weaknesses as a kind of discontinued model of evolution. Cyborg, the transhumanist visionary Kevin Warwick, depicts it as thus: just as humans split ourselves off from our chimpanzees cousins, cyborgs will split from humans. Those who remain humans will likely become a subspecies. They will be the chimpanzees of the future. Wow. I'm just going to go a little bit further because it goes into it. Schwab talks about the lockdown, and he basically they're contending that there was exaggeration and all that to as a catalyst to push this complete digital transformation of society. And he says it's our defining moment. Many things will change forever. And this, I'm just going to go through this here. This is pretty interesting here. Well, they're talking about the social distancing, how that's going to be a catalyst. Talking here, the coming of the era of artificial intelligence, the melding of man and machine, designer babies, designer organisms, geoengineering, digital homeschooling, smart homes, cities in which every object will be connected to an all-knowing artificial intelligence, a completely secure world thanks to total surveillance. And we see that unfolding in Canada and throughout the world. A world full of drones is a world full of possibilities. This is what's coming. These are the people behind the Great Reset. It's quite shocking. And he talks about a system management of human existence, made possible built-in smartphones, smart tattoos that share sensory data from the human body with the Internet of Things that could create artificial sensations. What about smart dust equipped with microsensors able to nest in human skin? And I just want to go on about this quickly. Smart dust arrays of full computers with antennas each much smaller than a grain of sand, can now organize themselves inside the human body. Unbelievable. And this is talk. This is leading into nanotechnology. And what sounds like a megalomaniac fever dreams of psychopath is the vision actually sought by one of the most powerful players in the global economy, the fourth industrial revolution, which Papa Trudeau was praising and getting ecstatic over when he first went to Davos when he came in office in 2019. Unbelievable. And the partners are large banks, big pharma, Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, insurance, oil companies, consulting firms, digital companies, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix, Chinese technology giant Huawei, et cetera, et cetera. We know the IMF, the World Bank as well. But I just wanted to give people an overlay of what's coming. That's a good summary there. I'm just going to add Scott in here. Welcome back, Scott. Does anyone have any comments from the panel on this? This is very scary stuff, but I think that's a good summary of where it is going.
Right. Well, there's a lot of contradictions coming from the West. You know, there's been 4 years of sanctions against China. Right now at the G7, the biggest topic is what are we going to do about China and Russia. These are existential threats to the United States and NATO. So, you know, there's these contradictions here. If the West is so keen on partnering with China, why does Canada, for example, have Huawei's CEO daughter under house arrest for 2 years? She's basically, you know, being held ransom. So, you know, there's a lot of things that don't completely add up to a total partnership with the West. Like, you know, of course, United States and China are just so much in each other's economic bed with each other. I don't see how they could get uncoupled, right? There's just so many American companies, you know, Walmart, Home Depot, even Canada, Canadian Tire, that owe their success to Chinese manufacturing. So how much in bed is China with Klaus Schwab and the WEF? I don't really know the answer to that. I've looked a lot, probably the same as you. It's not China leading all this transhumanism. It's the WHF. It's Klaus Schwab. How far is China falling that? That I don't know. I've looked at their vaccines. They have their own vaccine, Sinovac, which is not an mRNA vaccine. It's just an ordinary adenovirus. Same with Russia. Russia developed its own, the Sputnik vaccine, which is just an adenovirus vaccine. And you know, I've been watching for the side effects and the deaths, and I'm not seeing it. Maybe unless they're both hiding it really well, but they've also been distributing these vaccines all over the world, and we're not seeing this same death toll. I think like 12,000 dead last time I heard with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, and just thousands and thousands and thousands of side effects. So
yeah. Just be careful. China's propaganda ministry is going to put out what they want people to know. And I'm going to provide an example. When we look at 5G, like they're pretending they only have like maybe 400 5G sites. It's ridiculous. But I'm not contending that China is at the forefront of this great reset, so-called fourth industrial revolution, Richard. But I think the facts are very clear that China is basically one of the main launching sites of this so-called fourth industrial revolution in terms of the technology that they're implementing throughout their society. But I would contend further, and I'm going to back this up today, which is quite disturbing, that they're actually projecting this AI technocracy all over the world through what's called the digital Silk Road. And I'm going to shed some insight on today because that's another angle here. But I'm contending that they're a main player in this. They're not the player. Obviously, the central banks are running the world, and then you got the IMF, World Bank, you got the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the UN, the World Economic Forum, et cetera, et cetera. Richard, but they're
Yeah.
all in on this agenda, but they're competing. It looks like China's at the forefront of it. They're
Can I make a statement?
yeah,
A
yeah. Go
comment?
ahead, Scott.
Yeah. No, there's okay. Well, my knowledge of the Belt and Road comes from an American political group that is really at the heart of it. They really promoted it. The Belt and Road Initiative is not even Chinese by origin; it's American. It goes all the way back to Lincoln. Goes back to what's called the World Girdle, or what later became under FDR, the design for the World Land Bridge. Okay, so China.
Scott, we already went through the Belt and Road. We don't have an issue with that. That's an obvious economic play to merge Southeast Asia with Europe, parts of northwestern Africa. But what we're looking at
it's worldwide. It's connect South America to North America.
Oh no, but that's through
connect.
the digital component.
No. This is through also physical rail connection as well.
Yes, of course. But do you have any comments on Schwab and this fourth industrial revolution? Is that something you support?
Yes. Well, Schwab comes from a long line of Nazis. His whole background. The people running the EU are connected with the Nazis. I don't know if you know, but Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands was a card-carrying Nazi, and he founded the World Wildlife Fund, along with Prince Philip, whose sisters, 3 of them married Nazi SS officers. So the British monarchy is who funded the Nazis, along with their Anglo-American partners, Harriman, Brown Brothers, Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush. Okay, I mean, all of this comes from the Western, what we referred to as, and what Professor Harold Quigley of Georgetown University wrote 2 books on. Tragedy and Hope, and the first one was the Anglo-American Establishment, which is the remnants of the Round Table movement and the Fabian Society. All these movements, how the British Dutch oligarchy refashioned itself to retake control of the United States.
So how does this
How
does this link in? Talk about the Great Reset. That's what we're talking about. Do you support the Great Reset, the fourth industrial revolution? Do you support transhumanism?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, of course, the Great Reset, definitely not. The Great Reset was the same Great Reset that was the rise of fascism in Germany and Europe. Funded the same. That's what this is.
Yeah. All right.
That's
fair
what
enough.
the Great Reset is.
Okay,
But the Great Reset, just a reset, is in reaction to what China is doing to the Belt and Road. The Western system is financially bankrupt under the British monetarist system, completely and utterly. And this is what happened in 2001, 2008. So in the prospect, what's precipitated them from announcing the Belt and the Great Reset is a drastic counterattack to what China is doing, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah, fair enough.
So there's
some overlap there because they're all pushing this technocracy, and I'm going to provide some facts of this in Western countries as well, obviously, and it's not just China, but I'm going to contend for now that China is one of the main staging grounds for this, through their facial recognition, through their social credit, through their massive technocratic infrastructure. And you can go further that I'm going to contend now that through their digital Silk Road, they're actually pushing this technocracy all over the world. It's not just them. There's all kinds of Western companies that are aiding and abetting them. And I know Canada is very tied to China as well. At least some of these globalist corporations, like the Power Corporation, is heavily invested in China. So there's a lot of overlap. We don't want to get caught up in East-West all the time because there's a lot of overlap. And look how many Western companies are using the manufacturing hub in China. Thousands. So there's big overlap.
Yes.
And remember, at the World Economic Forum, there was consensus on this, and that puppet Trudeau was like a little boy going on, thinking he's some intellectual, going on about the fourth industrial revolution. But
Yes.
but this is their agenda. It's East-West. And I'm going to contend that, but I want to go into this document here. It's a good example of what's coming.
Okay.
I'm particularly concerned about the digital Silk Road. This article here, it's only one perspective, but it provides some good examples why people should be concerned. So
this isn't a diplomat.
Yeah, well,
Why?
yeah, I thought
Okay.
it was a particularly good article, and it's recent as of April 2021. So this is just going to give us some talking points. China's digital Silk Road is an ambitious vision to catalyze the global digitalization, basically the fourth industrial revolution, AI technocracy. What will it mean for digital governance? Because that's what's coming. Digital currency, digital governance, right? Top down. So the China Digital Silk Road was launched in 2015 as a component, vast vision of the global connectivity of the Belt and Road Initiative. I don't think anyone would deny that. The Digital Silk Road is not monolithic, involves many actors at all levels of Chinese public and private sectors. The initial investment in 2008 was 79 billion US. It's the parent aim, the surface aim is to improve the digital connectivity and participating countries, with China as the main driver of the process, obviously Huawei. The Digital Silk Road is about development and interoperability of the critical digital infrastructure, such as terrestrial and submarine data cables, 5G cellular network, data storage centers, global satellite navigation system. In one of the most recent moves, China completed the launch of a global satellite system with apparently 6G. And it's working. There's growing use of this in Laos, Thailand, West Asia, Africa. It promotes connectivity between local business consumers, including e-commerce, taxi hailing, fintech, financial technology, ed tech, education technology, and hardware such as routers, smartphones, and PC. And it's opening new markets for the Chinese tech giants. The main one is Huawei, in strengthening the world's digital connectivity with China. And this agenda fits in with China's national goal of Made in China 2025, China Standards 2035. Very scary. Wow. These initiatives aims to enhance China's domestic tech innovation, production, and transaction capabilities. And they are part of overarching vision of the Chinese government. I would go beyond the Chinese government for tech primacy, greater autonomy in the global digital order. There's some issues with this. Obviously, China is aiding. They're being criticized for aiding and abetting dictators, authoritarians, in various countries in Africa uh, by giving them the means to conduct surveillance on their own people, to shut off the internet, to do online censorship. So this is particularly concerning, but the U.S. has been guilty of that as well. So we don't want to single China on that as the only one who's doing that. And there's a bunch of big tech that are helping China: Google, Intel, Amazon, Cisco, Facebook, for example. China's not working alone on this. And Germany and Italy are connected into it as well. And this is a focus in Europe on 5G networks, fintech, smart city technologies. China's basically can build and offer the digital backbone that are almost entirely homegrown. The backbones are the infrastructure that make the digital communication possible: data cables, cellular networks, data storage centers, global digital order. And this is going to bring in the fourth industrial revolution, the next generation tech, artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, blockchain, serverless computing, etc. There's a state paternalistic nature. That's what they're contending here. The Chinese government enforces strict restrictions on cyberspace in China, so that's an issue there. But obviously, there's lots of censorship in the West, too. Singapore and India tend to enforce controls over the content, but same in the West. So that criticism doesn't hold up. There's issues of local cybersecurity policy enforcement capacities, other factors. China could gain powerful local political influence over certain countries in this. And they bring up some examples. They talked about some countries in Africa, and I brought them up, but they were talking about how they're using it to aiding and abetting dictatorships, authoritarian governments, to suppress political opposition, to do surveillance on their people. Obviously, this is something NCA doesn't support, but you see how like Schwab must be ecstatic over this, right? And China's not working alone, but this is spreading this fourth industrial revolution, right?
Well,
Maria,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to say something, Maria? Yes?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, the fourth industrial revolution, just touch on a couple points that Scott brought up. Is it the fourth industrial revolution, or is it the return of the Fourth Reich? Because the eugenics, many of these things that are talking about eugenics was a very Nazi thing. The T4 program that Klaus Schwab's father, Eugen Schwab, who owned a factory, managed a factory, I should say, didn't own it, in Ravensburg, was one of the first factory towns that got involved with this T4 program. You know, the British Eugenics Society, someone in the comments mentioned the MK Ultra program. Well, how that all started was because the Americans brought Dr. Mengele and hundreds of Nazi scientists to the United States who have infiltrated the government. There's so many Germans in high positions of power, Bavarian Germans specifically in the United States. It's very disturbing. Henry Kissinger, for one, who claims he came to the United States in 1938 to escape Nazi persecution because he's Jewish, was the one who led Operation paperclip. So there's a big contradiction there. The other stuff you're talking about is the digital stuff. This AI technology, I think it's like the space race. United States and Russia were in this competition to get to the moon first, a big space race, and I think the same thing's happening with artificial intelligence. In fact, there's a Putin is on record as saying whoever controls artificial intelligence will control the world. And that's a pretty alarming statement. So I think they're all rushing to get a hold of this stuff. They're all competing over resources in Africa and all over the world for copper, zinc, rare earth metal, and of course oil. So there's a whole lot of stuff here that says that these people aren't working together, or at least they're trying to work together because they all kind of have similar goals. But are they all on the same team? I don't think so. I'm not seeing a big international team. Like what I see is the Bilderbergers are all Europeans. It's the same 23 countries that have been going to Bilderberg for decades, and they're all the NATO. It's all NATO, the G20 countries. China has only ever sent one person to Bilderberg in 2011. So I don't know. Is the West being what's the word? Very politely scammed by China? Like we're playing along with the West, and meanwhile they're trying to compete without having the West start dropping bombs. Because that's, to me, looks more like what might be happening.
But the reality, it's being spread. And
it is
China,
being spread. Yes,
China through its digital Silk Road is an unbelievable spread of this fourth industrial revolution. They're not the only ones. I'm going to look at some Western countries now and what's going on in our backyard, because it's not just China. But remember, Richard, there's a number of Western companies working closely with China to make this happen. And we know Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum is a big proponent of what China is doing, and its social credit system and its AI technocracy. So there is a lot of overlap. If you got to remember, a lot of this technology is shifting over to the West. You can argue that China is a testing ground for it.
Well, is China a testing ground, or are they just following China's model? Because there's a difference. Like if a country is successful, the elites admire any leader who can control his population. Kissinger was a big fan of Singapore's leader who ruled Singapore with a iron fist for decades. Kissinger was also a big fan of Mao Zedong. I read Kissinger's book on China, where he praised Mao Zedong as being, formidable. He never criticized anything Mao Zedong did, because they don't really give a shit about people. They care about power. I get your point too. Like it's like nuclear technology. When the nuclear race, it was the Japanese, the Russians, the Germans, the Americans, they were the French, the British. They were all rushing to be the first to get nuclear weapons, and nuclear weapons are not good for anybody. But all these countries have them. China's got nuclear weapons. Pakistan, North Korea, So I get what you're saying. That they all want this stuff, and are they all in bed? I don't know. Anyway, but I'll let.
But there is overlap, without question.
Overlap.
There's definitely overlap. The big institutions are behind it. The World Economic Forum, the UN, right? They're all pushing it. The IMF, the World Bank. Go ahead, Maria.
So I understand that the 5G networks, the Europeans are using something else. They're not using Huawei. I'm not sure about US is not using it. They're using some other 5G network. Yeah, they're not working with Huawei.
It doesn't matter. It's still the same technology.
Yeah,
It's
I know,
just
I know.
who's
But I'm just
who's
talking about
who is
their.
controlling it.
Yeah, so that's they're using a different a Switzerland company. I think Europeans are using that. And then also, why for the G7 meeting, how come I didn't see any Chinese leaders or Russian leaders there? Are they not part of the G7?
No,
Can
no,
you?
they're not.
They're
No, they're
not.
not part of
I'm
it.
surprised. Yeah.
They're part of the
Neither is Russia.
G20. Yeah,
Neither is
Yeah,
Russia.
right.
They were
yeah,
kicked. They used to
Exactly.
be the G8, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So there's a bit nation state geopolitical rivalry. No one's going to deny that, Richard. But overall, they're all in agreement with this agenda that they're pushing, the AI technocracy. And they're probably, all of them are salivating over the power and control over the people, right?
Right. Well,
So,
one thing they're not partnering militarily. So this is one thing they're not doing. It's Russia and China who have a military partnership, who have been conducting joint military exercises. NATO is definitely not partnering with China and Russia. NATO's whole existence was to contain Russia, and still is to this day. So they're not partnering militarily. So I think that's
no,
where we can see it's an economic partnership that America has had with China since the 1970s, since
yes.
Kissinger and went over there. It was always an economic deal. So, have they? Is this still an economic partnership with all this technology, or is it something more sinister? Maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, but just think of what Klaus Schwab was saying in the transhumanism. That's pretty scary stuff. And then you look at what's going on in China. We didn't get into the social credit and the way they're controlling their people, but now it's extending out through the digital Silk Road. It's spreading all over the world, and that's not even considering Western what they're doing to spread this as well. Let's look at the UK here. I have this document here. I want to show that this isn't just going on in China. This is the UK government, and they have live CCTV, closed caption TV, face biometric moratorium, which they're against. So the UK government is pushing facial recognition. They want fingerprint cards. So they've been pushing it. So this is very similar to China, and there was some criticism from the biometrics commissioner, but the British government didn't agree with it. They're saying it's going to make society safer. So we get back to a free society versus a safe society.
Well, can I make a comment?
Can I just finish here? I just want to go through
Sure.
this.
Sure.
But they're launching this pretty advanced forensic program. They got the biometrics, facial recognition, and I know in Scotland, they're pushing it. The police are using facial recognition. So this is going on in the West, and the UK government is defending it. So it's not restricted to China. Go ahead, Scott, on this.
Well, the basic point when you mentioned the digital Silk Road and the technology that China is developing. Well, it's a rising power. Like I said, one of the key things to keep in mind in the whole context of why China's doing this is that the Western powers, the Western financial system, is a privately run and controlled system. It is not a public system of national credit. And this is why it is bankrupt. But with regard to technology is like the question can be put, is a gun good or bad? Right? It depends who's using it and for what purpose. A gun can save your life. and a gun you can kill someone with it to steal something or just kill them, right?
So
So the thing in itself is not an indicator, doesn't tell you anything about whether it's good or bad or what it might mean. It's in the intent of the humans who are using the technology.
so we live in top-down governments right now in the West. We know
Yes.
what China's doing. It's basically a totalitarian state. So all these governments now are using facial recognition on the public.
Actually, I have to correct you there. It is not a totalitarian state.
I view it as a totalitarian state,
You know, but
especially with their social credit system and
on what,
they're
Well,
what
on
they're
what base, why,
it's a
what are you
Go
basing
ahead.
China being a totalitarian state? Because just one example, China has lifted 300 million people out of poverty and put them into the
Oh.
middle class and reduced world poverty by 50%. Like
more like 700 million people now. Yeah.
it's been a spectacular achievement. When people get economic means, they have political power. China
Do they?
has a
It's
yes,
a-
they
Yes.
do. Yes,
it's
they
a-
do.
it's
Money
a
equals
one-party
political
state.
power. Yes,
There's
but
a
does that-
national social credit system. You have to conform. And if you're considered a bad actor, you're going to lose your freedoms in China. So
Well, you
they're
could-
putting up facial recognition everywhere, watching everyone. They control the internet. They decide what the public sees and what they don't. How is that not total control?
Well, it depends. Like again, how
I
you.
wouldn't go to China. I'd be afraid to go there because
But
you'd
here
probably
we
get
live
locked
in a-
up.
Yeah, you're saying that, but here we live in the West, where America has 17 intelligence agencies.
Of course, I'm not saying it's any different.
Well,
But
can I-
how is the trajectory of China not totalitarian?
Because okay,
Well-
I'll tell you why.
Do you want
Because-
facial recognition
No,
cameras
just-
watching your every move
No, I don't. But
and,
listen,
and rating you?
no, but what's the trajectory of China? The trajectory of China, in my opinion, is they are heading towards civil rights, freedoms, and democracy. They've
Are
never
they?
had.
I
Yes,
don't
they-
believe that at all.
No, just hold on. Just let me finish. They've never had civil rights and freedoms. It's never been part of their culture. Now, if we take a look at the West, what's the trajectory of the West? We are heading into a totalitarian police state. We're losing our freedoms. They are gaining. They are slowly, incrementally gaining. If you look at China from Mao Zedong to Deng, every single leader in China has implemented more and more reforms, right up to the current leader, Jinping. In 2007, they allowed private property in China. Things are changing in China. It's not Maoist China. Usually when I talk to people about China, they always talk about Mao Zedong. Well, that was decades ago. That's like comparing Putin's Russia with Stalin's Russia. These are Stalin's USSR. These are two completely different
Richard, hold on a sec here. Richard, political opposition in China is basically killed off. Okay?
Yes,
They have
and-
facial recognition everywhere. They're pushing
so do
more and
we.
more technocracy.
yes,
They have
so do we.
passports, which Maria doesn't support.
Yes,
You know, they have all these identifications,
I'm
and
not
then you think
disagreeing with you. I'm not.
and you think
disagreeing.
it's heading into a free society.
Yes,
It's
I think it's
becoming
heading
more through the technocracy. I contend it's becoming more totalitarian.
Yes, but you're missing part of the fact is that China has a very large collection of very successful, wealthy people. They have millions of millionaires, and I don't know how many billionaires China has, but these independent men who have their own companies have clout in China, and you cannot rule that out. You cannot say that all these people are little wishy-washy peons running around doing whatever the CCP wants, because that's just not reality. Right? You don't get billions of dollars and not have political clout. The CEO of Huawei, just one example, is an enormously powerful man in China, and
He's completely in bed with the Communist Party of China. He's
course
part of
they
the
are.
government. Huawei is part of the government.
But the same as it's the same with any system. Like,
Is
corporate-
BC Hydro part of the BC government?
does
I mean,
Walmart
does that represent the government?
Does Walmart
So, Richard, Richard,
Yeah.
would you prefer living in China under facial recognition, social credit?
Well, it's not a question
Is
of
it
where it's not a fair question because I'm Canadian. I prefer living in my country, right?
no?
But
But do you prefer that type of system? Would you
well, that's
like to
what we
be
have
judged by
here.
the government?
That's what we have here. Like like we're
No,
being
but
censored
not.
all over the place. You can't
We
even
do
post
have it
here
here
about
on
Facebook.
levels, but do you think we have it to the extent that China has?
Yeah,
We have
like
it worse.
seriously,
Have it worse here in
We
the
have it
West.
worse. We're just not seeing it. You have
Yeah.
you do not have political freedom in the West anymore. We've lost it.
No, of course
We
I totally
have,
agree with that.
we have no democracy here. Voting is just a sham.
I
It's just a,
agree because
sure.
it's multi-controlled. But let's
Yeah,
look here. This is in Australia now, and they're pushing the AI technocracy, facial recognition there, and that's one of the means of controlling the populace. You
right.
see that here? It's not only in and this is a big thing going on there. The government was trialing and deploying it in Queensland, Western Australia, using real-time facial recognition through CCTV cameras, and now they're debating the law about it, and
Yeah,
so it's going on in Australia. We know that it's going on in the UK, and guess what? It's going on in Canada as well. You know, the important point of showing that it's not only China that's doing this, but you could argue that the technology, the testing ground is China, and it's moving over to the West. Is that good for society? Do we want to live in a surveillance state? Do we think
um,
that's consistent with rights, values? Do we want to live in a social credit system where the government is evaluating your every move, your choices? I know in China they have thought police. Basically, they're censoring online. They do it in the West as well. There's tons of censorship online. So I agree with you there, Richard. There's a lot of overlap,
right.
but that's consistent with the spread of this fourth industrial revolution, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's two different projects here that are happening on a global scale. The fourth industrial revolution, which is a Western project, and the Silk Roads project, which is a Chinese-inspired project. Now, does the Belt and Road Initiative lead to a better, more prosperous, peaceful world? I would say unequivocally yes. Any kind of deal like that, where you have interconnected trade that benefits everybody, yeah, it's a better plan. And the best thing that the West could do would be to join it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree there, but that's different. It's different from the digital
Yes.
Silk Road, which is
Yes.
spreading the fourth industrial revolution. So
Or
I'm going to
and
contend that this this agenda is a globalist agenda. China is just one player in it, and so
Maybe
there
they're
you
just trying
have
to,
it. And here it is in Canada, the RCMP using Clearview AI facial recognition services. And then they say it violated the Privacy Act, but a lot of Canadians don't know we have no constitutional right to privacy. The government can pry into anyone's life. There's no
right.
constitutional restriction limiting their invasion of privacy.
Can I? It's Stephen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can I ask
So,
you a question, Stephen? Just
yeah.
that the group can consider. What do you think is at the heart? If we're losing, as Richard is saying, we're losing our rights, which I agree with. I think you'd be hard pressed to argue against that. What do you think is causing that? Isn't that the result of something else going on that's much more systemic?
Of course it is, and it's happening over decades. It's a big question. I would argue that it's a top-down, um, linked into top-down governance and almost an entrenchment of power. Um,
Right.
it's kind of morphing into a plutocracy. of the
Right.
extremely
Yes.
wealthy controlling the country. I would
But
contend. I would
but
contend
what
that
kind of people are these?
I would contend that the central bank is running Canada. The central banks are running the world. China has a central bank as well. They're all connected. Um, but this
What
Okay,
is
thank
is, and then I would
I'd
say,
like,
what do
I'd
you
like to
know
answer your
the
question as
financial
well.
center of the world, of the Western world, where that is?
Yeah, it sure as hell isn't Beijing.
No.
It's not
no, but
Beijing.
their
The West,
central bank. Their
this is
central
not
banks are
communism. This is capitalism. All of
it's
these people, these
no. Their
Bill
central
Gates,
banks.
Bill Gates is a monopoly capitalist. All of these people are corporate people. They're not communists. I have to deal with this all the time with people. I see all the comments here. This is not communism. We don't live in a communist West. We live in a capitalist West. This is monopoly capitalism on steroids. I wish people could get their heads around this and stop trying to say that this is communism. There's nobody quoting Karl Marx here. If you think this is communism, you really have no understanding of what communism is. Mao Zedong was a communist. So was Stalin. They live, eat, and breathe communist ideology. That's what communism is all about. I've hung around communists, and they just cannot stop talking about communism. They quote Marx and Engels nonstop. It's like a religion. It's really what it is. It's a
Yeah,
religion.
but hold on a second. In fairness to
That's
yeah,
not
hold
what's
on a
happening.
second.
Klaus Schwab if the one book you should read is not The Great Reset. Most people have missed that Klaus Schwab came out with another book in January of this year, and it's called Stakeholder Capitalism. And on the WEF website, go look up the Capitalist Manifesto. That's what he's got here, not the Communist Manifesto, the Capitalist Manifesto.
Yeah, but
And
hold on a second, Richard. I think you're overlooking something. The fourth industrial revolution. I see Barbara McKee's comment, and I want to echo what she's saying there, Richard, is that the overall and general of the fourth industrial revolution, the Great Reset, UN Agenda 2030, you could argue at the root of it,
It's
there is
fascism.
hold on, no, a communist global governance model
Corporate.
making people
Fascism
dependent,
is
making people dependent on government.
It's corporate. They want a corporate governance, corporate state. Go look on the World Economic. It's spelled out there in plain English. They're corporate people. They want a corporation governing the world.
But there is a communist. If you look into UN Agenda 2030, it has a communist veil to it. It's making everyone dependent.
It's
Yeah,
capitalism.
it feels like communism, but it isn't. It's technocracy. It feels
Of
like
course it is.
communism. It's got,
But it's kind of
it feels like it, but it
intertwined.
isn't.
It
It's
does.
technocracy.
It's kind of a mix, Richard. So
It's
that's why a lot of
control.
people.
It's like calling medieval Europe communism, because medieval Europe was controlled by the Roman Catholic Church. It was a totalitarian religious police state where you couldn't defy the Spanish inquisitors, or you'd end up being burned at the stake. But there's no way you would call it communism. You're looking at the symptoms and saying it's all the same disease.
Well, the label. Yeah.
But the point people are making is it's about top-down global governance. Richard?
Well, the same thing happens. What do you think fascism is? What do you think Nazi Germany was all about, and Mussolini in Spain? And who funded those people?
Do you support communism, Scott?
Just a minute. All the industrialists like Ford and the Bronfmans, and they funded all of these. They're in a class of themselves, and what did they do? They captured the government why did they go after the unions? During FDR's day after the Depression was to break the unions so they'd be slave labors to corporate capitalist cronyism.
Yeah. Adolf Hitler had a picture of Henry Ford in his office. Like, that's a truth story.
Fair enough. But
but
hold on a second here. Communism, fascism are just two extremes. They're at opposite ends, and there's a lot of similarities between them.
They come around to meet each other. They come around to be the same thing.
So what people are worried about, Richard, they could argue that the top-down governance is so extreme in UN Agenda 2030, the fourth industrial revolution, and then you tie it into what Maria said, the technocracy. It's very scary what's happening.
Yes,
and then
it is.
we can tie it into the vaccines, Maria, and the lockdown and what's going on. It's very scary what's going on, especially when we're creating these surveillance states. Like here's the
Yes.
RCMP using facial recognition, and there's nothing
Yes.
in the Constitution that would stop them.
Right.
Do you want to
because we
be
don't.
tracked, Richard? Do you want your every move tracked by the government
No, of course
and
not.
judged?
No, of course not. Of course, none of us.
Okay,
do.
but
No,
that's what's coming.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
we all
but
agree
to my
about that,
question,
yes.
And it's not just China. I want to make that clear. That's why I brought up Western examples. It's happening all over the world.
so let me ask a question then of the panel to think about. So we're going in a cycle we went through in the 20th century even alone. We okay, just going back a little further, after the Civil War, there was the largest growth in industrial capability in the world. And the United States led that because the United States was the fight for the Union was a fight for industrial development, and with the industrial development came all the other benefits that come from that, which is civil rights, education, better job prospects because the employment diversifies. And then we faced a turnaround from that. We faced the demise. We faced the Great Depression of 1929 and the collapse of the stock market, the speculative stock market that was actually controlled by the City of London and its banks and Wall Street, which is its partner. And then we faced the terror, the specter of ultimate oligarchical control under fascism, Nazi Germany, and worldwide. And that was overcome by FDR, principally, being in office for the 4 terms that he was, and restructuring the world to save us from a fascist takeover by what would have been a ruling class. And then after that, we enjoyed the highest amount. We kept enjoying the highest amount till about the 70s of human rights, civil rights, constitutional rights, blah, 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 blah. All because we were on a pro-development, we were a pro-development era. And Canada was too. The Bank of Canada was created to build up Canada, principally by the British, to allow us to fight the Nazis when they wanted finally the Nazis to be put down. But that was quickly dismantled, shortly thereafter the war. Now we're facing, ever since the 70s, we went on the gold standard, off the gold standard, the Bretton Woods Agreement. And ever since, we've been on a decline. An inevitable collapse of our Western economy is at its hand. So that's why I'm saying the Western financial system has been taken over by a bunch of fascists who are based in the city of London, which is the remnants of the British Empire, and their partners in Brussels who run the EU, and their partners on Wall Street and Bay Street in Canada. And they are going to try and make us slaves to their fascist autocracy under this 4th industrial revolution. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, you're
Now, the rise in the segments where we did have a rise in human standards and through development was principally through what we could call the advancement of the nation state system. And this came out after, this is Lincoln after winning the war, the nation state system. And in fact, it was the United States that sponsored the industrial development in Japan with the Meiji Restoration, and they sponsored and worked to industrialize Germany. It was the American system of economics that developed Germany, and it followed in France and many other countries. but those countries principally started it, and that's why World War I was started, and that's another story. But China now, today, contrary to what you've been told in a reading, and because you see this larger demise, which is correct, but you're projecting that China is part of it. They are not. They are actually defending the nation state system. That is why you get 136 countries who are participating in the Belt and Road system, and why the digital economy, the digital Silk Road, is also opening up to them participation in the larger economy. For example, farmers who could, in rural areas or areas that couldn't be developed very well, like in India. India, they have, I think, 21 farmers, I think, a day. Something horrendous, commit suicide. They commit suicide because they can't get their products to market. And that country is kind of backwards, despite having some high tech, but organizationally, administratively, it's backwards. So these farmers kill themselves because they don't. If they could use blockchain or other technology, which they're starting to implement, to get their crops and have guaranteed price, they would stop killing themselves. They would have a future. And this is the aim of the Indian government, to do this. So to them, this technology is a lifesaver, and it is the way forward. Like I said, technology is good or bad depending on who is using it and what the intent is. It's not the technology by virtue of itself.
Yeah, we're not going to get into food supply issues. We did a thing on GMOs, geoengineering. I think your premise has to be challenged a bit. You can't say all technology is inherently good. It depends on the technology, and
I said
like
I didn't say it was good. I said it's neither. It's dependent upon what the intent
no, but
and who is
a
using it.
technology can be inherently bad. Like a case can be made about GMOs and their harmful impacts on the human body. So where's the inherent good in it? So,
Well,
but we're not going to
genetic.
get in.
Yeah, no,
We're
but
not going.
I could. No, genetic engineering is what made Punjab food independent.
But
The green,
we will
the
invite
green
you to our
revolution.
security, our next one, and you can add your input there. We just did one a week ago, but we're not going to get into that rabbit hole right today. Um,
Sure,
Scott,
but
I
my
appreciate your comments there,
yeah, it
but
just
like I laid it out at the beginning about the technology. I think everyone should be terrified on what's coming. The surveillance state, not only in China but around the world.
yeah.
And it's obviously about those using it. And as Scott said, to build off what Scott said, the Western state is top down corrupt. It's run by the central banks, so that's very scary because these are the people that will be using the technology on the people. So it's very
Right,
disturbing what's happening.
right.
And you can see what's happening with the digital Silk Road and how they're empowering dictators and authoritarians to suppress their people even more and to, all
Well,
this. It's
that
very concerning.
it's actually the reverse of that when China gets involved in Africa.
No, that's not true.
Um,
There's examples
no,
where
it
they're
is.
actually empowering them, these dictators, to actually survey their peoples, do the surveillance, shut off the internet, go after political opposition. This technology is extremely powerful, and that's what's happening. So that's very concerning, but it's happening in the West. But I want to talk about Canada now. I have the Privacy Act up here, and I want to make a quick point about this. In the Canadian Charter of Rights of Freedom, there's no mention of privacy. There is no constitutional right to privacy. This act here is it's just a front, and I want to bring up the key point in here. It's
There
just
we
right
have
here.
a comment.
It's right there, right here. Well, I got to go to the next page on this. Here we go. So here it is here. This is the key point about this. It's section 5.1 of the Privacy Act. It says, quote, a government institution shall, wherever possible. Wow. No, it's this one here. It's actually 5.2. Individual to be informed of purpose. Where is it here? I'm just going to find this section here. But there's no right to privacy in this country. Oh, it's right here. Here it is here. It's actually section 4. It says no personal information shall be collected by a government institution unless it relates directly to an operating program or activity of the institution. So basically what that says is the government can basically spy on any Canadian, whatever they want, as long as it's directly related to a program that they're running. It could be facial recognition program, whatever program they have or activity of the institution. I just want people to be aware of the deficiency in our rights when it comes to privacy. And Scott, this is troubling when we link into what you were saying about the governments and their top-down and corrupt nature. But you have no right to privacy. That's why there's dragnet surveillance in Canada, because of the government organization that's doing that. It's part of their operating program to do mass surveillance, right? So the Privacy Commission never says anything about that. But when the RCMP does it, they say something because it's not specifically in their mandate of their program, fighting crime. So all the RCM, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, need to do is just update their operating program to include facial recognition. That's what people need to realize. And then I want to show the 5G map here to tie this together. This is the 5G map around the world. Look at that, eh? And this is what's happening now. Here it is here. And you see the US. The US is at the forefront of it. They're around 25,000 deployments. And you got Germany at 21,000, France at 13,000. But if we look at China, they're just not disclosing their deployments. You know, how many thousands of deployments of 5G are in China, but they're not disclosing the data. So, but that's a good breakdown of what's happening. But those are the UK has about 1,000 deployments, but Thailand has 451. As if Thailand has more 5G deployments than China, right? So China's
And
not
Russia
being
has nothing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and yeah, well, Russia has lots. We know Moscow has a lot of 5G, right?
But
So
it's not showing up here.
yeah, so it's not showing up here for some reason. But you can see the deployment in the US. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to show you that the US is really far ahead on this AI technocracy, because 5G, you could argue, one of the technological gateways for it. But look at that.
Can I ask you a
Go ahead.
question, Stephen? This is a
Yeah.
little bit off topic, so just have you seen all this stuff with the metal sticking to vaccinated people? The
No, I
spoons
don't.
and
Oh,
you
really?
haven't seen any of that stuff? Oh yeah, there's been
No.
tons of videos all over about
Okay.
people who've been vaccinated have metal sticking to their bodies. So my speculation is that it's electromagnetics from because they're being bombarded with 5G. They're already hooked up. Like I don't. If you haven't heard about that, you should because you could probably answer my question if about it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and Stephen, on this
Yes.
diagram, Canada is almost nothing. I mean, you look at Canada, what happened to Canada? It's not even listed,
Canada
right? There's
is
no,
really. We're going to do
because
an update on.
Ontario is, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we're going to do an
Alberta
update on
and Ontario.
5G. We're going to do an update on 5G on the science on the deployments. So we will explain that. But basically, they're just slow deploying it. There's been 5G antennas deployed during the lockdown, but they're basically the 5G in Canada is operating within the 4G realm, and that's similar to Australia and other countries. So,
Hmm.
but give it a year or two, Maria, then you're going to start to see a
Right.
lot more 5G deployments.
Okay, so another
But
question, the ones in the red circle, does that mean commercial availability?
yes, it is.
So you're looking at Africa, South America, near Mongolia and Iceland, as in
Well,
red? I
some of
don't
these
understand it.
are the digital Silk Road from China coming in and setting up Huawei 5G networks and that type of thing,
Okay.
right? Remember that that's what they're
And
doing, part of that.
okay.
So, but the reason I'm getting an echo here. The reason I'm showing this, could you take me off speaker, someone?
Okay.
The reason I'm showing this map, the reason I'm showing the map is just to show it's not only China who is pushing this digital Silk Road. It's happening all over the world, and it's tied into the fourth industrial revolution, and the facial recognition and the technocratic control of people. Richard, I don't think there's any denying that. So, but we're going to do a pretty extensive update on 5G next week, Maria. But
Okay.
this 5G stuff, I don't want to get into it tonight. We've been going for a while, but it's highly toxic to humans over time. Cumulative exposure, the EMF radiation. It's very troubling, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. But they're going to be even. I don't know what's going to happen, Maria, when this thing is. Look, it's happening all over the world now, right? So uh, we're going to have to watch the
Yeah.
health numbers.
So, could we cover a few like solutions as a way to end this conference? So the
Yeah,
fact
it's
I
difficult.
have
This
I
is
have to
going
say
on.
that
This is a global thing, Maria.
yeah, I know that. I know that. From a perspective of vaccines, though, I mean, there's a lot of side effects. There's a lot of doctors coming out, so they're on the verge of putting a halt on all this. You know, because there's just so many adverse effects and
But
so
it's a
many
bit late
deaths.
to put a hole. It's
No,
so
it's
many
not.
have
It's never
no.
too late. It's never too late. They did that with the swine flu,
Yeah, we'll
so
have
that's
to
the
see.
latest
We'll have to
development.
monitor that. But
Yeah, something will happen. Something will happen this year,
a lot of people have been vaccinated. So
Yeah,
and a
for
and
a
lot
lot
they're
of
haven't.
people, it's too late for them. For a
exactly.
lot, yeah, they made their choice
Yeah, and they will die.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the comments today. We had them displaying, um, and we're going to go through them. I don't think we're going to go through them all now, but we've been reading them as they come through. But good topic today. I think people should be very concerned about what's going on. Our purpose today was just to let you know what's happening on a bigger picture around the world. And these are things to look out for. Uh, if anything, it looks like it's going to get worse before better, without question. They're just going to keep deploying this AI technocracy. They're just going to keep deploying it, and this is a tough reality we're heading into. We didn't get into the central banks. We've done that before, but the centralized digitalized currency is a big issue I'm very concerned about. That's complete financial control over people, complete financial surveillance. That's going to be a game changer. And Richard, do you have any closing comments? You know,
Uh,
I agree that there's some geopolitical conflict,
right.
like you're saying, but there's a lot of overlap of what these countries are doing.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Like so many countries are partnering globally, financially. Like we don't have the same kind of world we had 100 years ago, where everything is connected. Like no matter which way you look at it, whether for good, bad, or for ugly, our whole world is interconnected with technology, with the internet, with communication. Um, so I think any move that the technocrats make is going to have ripple effects all over the world, like no matter what they do. So this it might be a saving grace for us that things are interconnected because they can't escape each other. You know what I mean? They can't get away from each other. Like even though the United States, has put sanctions on China, they can't get out of the financial bed with them. They would destroy them. You both would destroy each other. They just can't uncouple. They're stuck with each other. They made their marriage bed, and there's no getting a divorce, an easy divorce. So definitely, yeah, I definitely agree. I don't want this technology. We don't want this 5G crap. All this invasive surveillance and lack of privacy being practiced all over the world. Yeah, we don't want it. Doesn't matter who's behind it. We don't want it, and we should be all fighting as citizens all over the world. We need to fight to stop all this kind of surveillance technology. It's just it's just madness. We need to fight back for the rights of the average citizen like never before.
Yeah.
We have to partner
Yeah.
together. Yeah,
Yeah,
whether
Yeah,
we're
we definitely have to fight back. Yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah.
definitely have to fight back.
This is uh, um, um, a supreme existential threat on humanity, without question. And I'm reading a book now called Anti-Fragile. It's the author who wrote Black Swan. And I agree with the basic premise that what these top-down governments are doing is they're making the people weak through dependency. And what we should be doing as a country, as a society, as a world, is helping people to be independent, self-sufficient, and thereby they'll be the strongest and most resilient. But all this hurting and dependency on government, it's catastrophic, Maria, on so many levels.
right,
It's making people sick.
right.
And that
No,
now, when you tie in, Richard, the technocracy, the surveillance state that's coming, that's already here, but this is just the beginning. Like this is unimaginable. This is George Orwell times 1,000, right?
right.
The world we're heading into. And Scott made a good point. It depends on how technology is used, but he conceded that these governments are corrupt, so the people who are using it are corrupt.
Well, how did the governments get corrupt, and why are the like in many ways we've allowed this because citizens have stopped getting involved in politics and in local governments for the very reason you said is because they become reliant on the state to solve all their problems for us and become easy pickings. You know, if we had a more self-reliant culture where people had everyone had a plot of land, everybody was growing their own food, this would minimize dependence enormously on the government because food is our basic um, requirement for life. Yeah, it's our basic requirement.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't
And
want
also
that.
we were
No, they don't want that.
Yeah.
They want to get control of everything, absolutely everything.
So it's not about the people. That's plain and simple. So
No.
this is a serious existential threat, and and people are diverted by the UN IPC climate change, by the lockdown, but the real fear is the attack on people, and it's happening on so many different levels, Maria, and we're going to keep
yeah.
touching on it, but the state has so many machinations to it. The fake media, the multi-controlled political puppets, right?
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
the appointed courts. Then you got the central bank running everything behind the scenes. You got the privy council. That's what we're up against. It's very troubling. And then we link in the 5G, what's happening with the EMF, the surveillance. It's very troubling. We don't want to be doom and gloom here, but we have to be pragmatic about the reality we're facing. In order to deal with it, we need to face it, Maria.
Yep, and we do, and have to keep fighting. We have to use everything in our power. As individuals, we have to rise up. We can acquiesce. We have to
Yeah.
use the court of law. We have to use it to the max. We have to be less reliant on the government, so government handouts. No, sit at home and wait for the government to give you a paycheck. No, just rely on yourself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's my
excellent. So we're
message.
going to keep this dialogue going. I want to thank all the comments today. We look forward to going through them in more detail. But I thought it was a really good topic today. It was really eye opening on the overall agenda of what's happening. But just remember the central banks, as Scott brought up, and unfortunately Scott can't be in here now because there's a sound issue. But he made some good points. But we're going to continue the dialogue. I want to wish everyone a good night and thank you very much for joining in.